Greetings, crew members. We're back with another review, this time of a much older film, The Wages of Fear. Released in 1953, The Wages of Fear is a French production starring Yves Montand, Charles Vanel, Peter Van Eyck, and Folko Lully. I want to start up front by saying I recommend this movie fully. Go watch it. I know it's an older film, but I believe it really holds up and is certainly light years ahead of similar Hollywood productions from the time. This movie has the pacing of a modern film. It's edited almost perfectly. The performances are really engrossing. It's one of the best thrillers I've ever seen, and I think it might be one of my new favorite films. There are some problems with it, which we'll get into. The premise itself revolves around these four very desperate men who have taken a job to deliver truckloads of nitroglycerin across a rough Latin American road to an oil well that has exploded, and they need the explosives to shut off the fire. But they don't have any safety precautions. They're specifically chosen by the oil company because they're desperate, because they have no family, and because they're essentially just expendable.
So take your two best trucks.
You mean 10 tons for 100 gallons of nitro?
I said take your two best trucks. Load them, put them on an elastic base to absorb shock.
It's murder. Condition of the roads, your drivers haven't got a 50-50
Well,
chance.
keep trying till one gets through. That'll be enough.
And you think the union's gonna just sit back and let you go ahead?
The hell with the union. There are plenty of tramps in town, all volunteers. I'm not worried. To get that bonus, they'll carry the entire charge on their backs.
You mean you're gonna put those bums to work?
Yes, Mr. Bradley, because those bums don't have any union, nor any families. And if they blow up, nobody will come around bothering me for any contribution.
Now, the first 45 minutes to about an hour of this film really world build. This is the Criterion version, which you can find streaming on the Criterion channel, as well as available on Blu-ray. It starts with about 45 minutes to an hour of just establishing the world that these characters exist in. The town itself is this unnamed Latin American town, like a Venezuela or Colombia type situation in the 1950s. The people who live in the town are very poor. They came there from promises of jobs, but the jobs were nowhere to be had. The only business that exists is this oil company that is very clearly exploiting and drying up the resources of the area with no concern for its local populace. We also get a sense of the main characters in this first 45 minutes, of which there are essentially four. Now, our first main character, and kind of the core character of the film, is Mario, played by Yves Montand. Mario is very French. You can tell by his outfit. But he's also very cool, collected. He's the typical kind of con man type person who, will insert himself into people's lives when he feels that he can get things from them. He is willing to destroy friendships at the drop of a hat when there's the potential of money involved, because he's just as desperate as the other people in the town, but he puts on sort of this brave face about it. He's also very morally gray and not a good person. He's taking advantage of this local woman who's very much into him, and he could very much care less about her. He only uses her to get free things or obviously for sex. Then we meet Joe, who comes into the town. He's some kind of big shot or former big shot. You can tell by the way he carries himself, the way he dresses. The reality is he is on the run for his life, and he is just as broke and desperate as everybody in the town he now finds himself in. Mario instantly attaches himself to Joe because he can see that this guy, has some kind of potential for money or for work. And also because they share a heritage with both being from Paris, and something they talk about quite often. You also meet Luigi. Luigi is Mario's roommate. In fact, it's his house, and he's letting Mario stay there. Luigi's very affable and nice at first. He's willing to provide willing to provide Mario with food and lodging, and it's only when Mario starts to push that too much that Luigi becomes very aggravated towards him, and they have a falling out. You also meet Bimba, who is kind of peripherally in the background. He's this Dutch German man Very professional, but also kind of very mysterious and the most underdeveloped of the four. But I think it goes a long way in terms of the mystique of his character. So after about 45 minutes of this great buildup, we have, these men all desperate for work, looking for work. And then we get a setup from the boss of the oil company that this well has exploded and that the only way to shut it off is to get nitroglycerin up there to detonate and close it. But the only way to do that is to load up essentially just two trucks they have and pay some people to do it. They have some tests and trials to see, who's willing to sacrifice themselves and also who's able to do it, because at the drop of the hat, just offering $2,000 a person for this job means that almost everybody in town, regardless of the danger, is willing to take it. So they narrow it down to our four main leads. There's a bit of a subplot involving initially choosing someone other than Joe, and Joe knowing the oil company owner and the person who was supposed to have his spot not showing up conveniently. But that sort of dropped. It's just another kind of flavor we get about how far Joe is willing to go for this job. Yeah, so all the nitro is loaded into the only transport they have, which are these large, bumpy cargo trucks. And they have no safety features other than stuffing rags in between the various cans of high explosive. And they tell each driver that if they survive, they will get $2,000 upon completion of delivery per person. I did the math on this, but there's obviously some variance in currencies and the exact time frames, but adjusted for inflation, that's roughly about $20,000 per person. So these people are very much valuing their own lives directly at $20,000. But this, of course, is their way to get out of this town before they die in it, because the only way to get out of town, as they established earlier, is a very expensive plane ticket. Now, once the trucks get underway, it is near non-stop tension. It's fabulous. There's this wonderful moment where they're all gathering at the base camp where they set the trucks up, and they're discussing various things about the job and about what they're going to do with the money.
You know. And since nothing? Well, in that case, well, I don't think Smirloff will appear now. Get dressed anyway. Come on, it's time.
It's like this dragon that's waiting outside for them. It's one of the most ominous moments I've seen in film. Now, the sequences ramp up from initially a bumpy dirt corrugated road that they have to maintain a consistent speed over to avoid the reverberation effect on the trucks. Now, I know for a fact that this is something Mythbusters tested, but I can't specifically remember if this was proven or not. But in the film, it creates a situation where the truck ahead is slowing down and then passed by the truck behind, and then the truck behind is now the truck ahead. But then they have to slow down, and the truck behind is running too fast, and they risk a collision, which of course would kill them and pretty much everything within 2 kilometers of the surrounding area, with how much high explosive is loaded onto each vehicle. This is a wonderfully tense scene. It also picks up with the sort of claustrophobia of these 2 people per truck being trapped in these tight boxes where every bump, every sort of nudge in the road causes them to wince and groan, and the pressure of the fear building inside them, which is the running theme naturally of the film, is the mounting fear on each of these men.
When I was a kid, I used to see men go off in these kind of jobs and not come back. When they did, they were wrecks. Their hair turned white and their hands were shaking like palsy. You don't know what fear is. But you will see. It's catching like smallpox. And once you get it, it's for life.
After the dirt road, we get into this wonderful, jaw-dropping sequence, probably the best sequence in the film, that involves the 2 trucks having to navigate a turn in the road by using a rotten wooden platform that's overhanging a cliff. It juxtaposes the 2 sets of drivers really well, because we see Luigi and Bimba communicating effectively, making a plan, working together. I like how Luigi make sure to avoid the back of the truck. And then we get to Joe and Mario, who just argue and bicker and don't listen to each other. And trust me, viewer, as someone who's had to help his dad back trailers into our family driveway for years as a kid, the scene where Mario nearly crushes Joe because he's ignoring his pleas to stop made my skin crawl.
Ça va comme ça! Ça va comme ça! Je t'ai dit au rat! Ça va comme ça! Stop! Stop! Ah!
Now, from here on out, I'm going to discuss some spoilers. So if you haven't seen this film, I do recommend highly you go see it. I thought it was great. I can't recommend it enough. So stop this video and go watch it if you haven't seen it. Or if you want to continue this video but avoid spoilers, you can skip to the time code here. Now we're going to get into spoilers. Firstly, given the premise of the film, it's undoubted that you're going to have a massive explosion at some point. There are 2 trucks in this plot for a reason. And when that happens, I think it's one of the most powerful moments in the movie because it doesn't come in the middle of one of the tenser situations. It comes literally after the end of a very tense moment where they have to demolish a boulder and rocks nearly set off the rest of the nitro. And we see the 2 characters who are soon to be deceased just talking back and forth. And then we cut to Joe and Mario in their truck, Mario driving and Joe in the other side, and they're having a conversation, and Joe goes to roll a loose cigarette, which, along with Mario's outfit, this entire film is one of the most French things about it. And you just see this shot of the tobacco blowing out of his paper all of a sudden, and then there's this flash and they look up and then they see the cloud in the distance, and as they see the cloud they hear the boom. And not only is this incredibly accurate to how you would perceive that kind of a massive explosion, the way that light and the wind will travel faster than the sound in a way. And it's also great because obviously they don't have the production to do some kind of a massive on-camera explosion. Even at the time, the cameras probably wouldn't even be able to really process both the speed and the brightness of an explosion of that effect. The way that they managed to do that in those quick succession of shots and edits and really drive home that moment by just focusing in on the faces of the 2 surviving drivers is stunning, and I think one of the most brilliant uses of every tool in a filmmaker's box to portray that sort of shocking moment. It's really effective too because it's brought up before and after that, like, you wouldn't know what caused the explosion. Mario and Joe remark that they'll never know, and least of all Luigi and Bimba, who are now atomized, will never know. It just happened, whether it was driver error or just an errant bump or just maybe one of the cans got too hot. Now, the other thing I want to discuss is the direct ending of the film. I was satisfied with it up until a point, but the last 5 minutes we see Mario, who is now the only survivor of this expedition. He's been paid, he's delivered the nitro, and he is heading back to a big celebration for him that's being thrown at his bar, and he's swerving and driving on the road like an idiot because I guess he's very happy, and then he drives off the road and dies. Close-up of his dead body, literal fin, because this is a French film from the 1950s. Okay, so I get the nihilism of the story, and it's certainly in line with the character who was portrayed as being this very reckless guy who didn't make plans, who lived in the moment, and who didn't really want to follow rules or, you know, ideas of how we should act. It doesn't feel in line with the fact that this is an incredible lack of respect towards the vehicle that's nearly killed this guy several times. We sort of see his arc over the course of the film because with everything that happens, he is the one that is most driven to get the money.
Pourquoi t'es vache avec moi comme ça?
T'as pas encore compris, non? J'ai besoin de toi. On n'est plus que nous 2. Alors tu vas m'accompagner gentiment. Jusqu'au bout. Allez au camion.
He is the one that stops Joe from quitting several times. He's the one that's constantly challenging the other two drivers to go faster because he really wants the money. And every tense situation that happens between the platform and the boulder and the road, he is the one who sort of maintains his composure. But in the final sequence before they deliver the nitro, he has to drive the truck through an oil pit that has been created as a result of the explosion of the other truck. And it gets stuck. He injures Joe doing it. And then he has to use improvised winch system to get him out. And the entire time the truck is shaking, and you can see the fear building on his face until finally he gets out and he climbs out of the truck and he finally breaks down and is terrified. That's his arc. And you can sort of see the completion of that arc 5 minutes before the ending of the film when he finally delivers the truck. He's covered in oil. Joe is dead in the truck next to him. He gets out and sort of wanders towards the burning oil field and collapses exhausted. And I felt like that was a more natural concluding point for the story. I mean, we know sort of how the rest of it will go, obviously not knowing that he would just drive off the road like an idiot. But I felt like that was the appropriate conclusion of the film, and I feel like in a more modern film, that would have been the conclusion of the movie. But adding this on, it's trying to say a lot. It's trying to say a lot about how, you know, he wasn't afraid when he died. Maybe that's why he did die. Maybe that's what fear is. It keeps us alive. Maybe it was trying to say something about his character or the nihilism or the ennui of it all, the pointlessness of it all. But it feels too metaphorical and less in line with the character. The other weakest thing in the film is the only female character. This is damn near inexplicable. She is a complete idiot because she is a local woman who is overly pining and overly infatuated with Mario. And I'm like, girl, this dude literally pushed you off a moving truck 2 scenes ago. He is not kind to her, and her, even up until the very last moment of the film, with her excitedly claiming he's coming back, he's alive, yay. It doesn't feel like any sort of a real character, and it's just yet another example of how I've yet to find a film from the 1950s that in any way treats any female characters with agency or respect. The Wages of Fear is an amazingly tense film that is an example of movie making in some of its purest forms. The editing, the cinematography, the performances all combine into this really exciting, tight-paced thriller. Now, I'm going to watch the pseudo-remake Sorcerer, which was made in 1977 by The Exorcist's own William Friedkin. Look for a video on that coming soon. I'm excited to see sort of how more modern at the time filmmaking techniques translate into that movie. It also has an interesting history regarding its release that I'll talk a little bit about. But thank you everybody for watching my review of Wages of Fear. Again, I'm going to go ahead and give it just a 5 out of 5, even for those couple little flaws regarding its female characters and its sort of nihilistic ending. I think it's a pretty much near perfect film. Yeah, go watch it. Oh, and watch some other stuff on our channel too, because we've got some Let's Plays. Tamara and I are playing Dragon Age Origins. I'm having a lot of fun doing that. I've got some other movie reviews. I just did a review of No Sudden Moves starring Don Cheadle. That's also out on my channel. And we've got some big stuff coming up, so keep an eye out for that. All right, everybody, stay safe, be who you are. Bye.